I just signed my divorce papers last week. Not to celebrate. Not because I feel victorious, but because I finally chose myself. I'm not here to get pity. I don't want people telling me you were so strong or you should have left earlier. Trust me, no one knows what it's like unless you've lived it. Unless you've spent 17 years pretending your pain doesn't matter just so a house can stay quiet. I'm here because I want someone, maybe a stranger, to listen, not to fix it, not to rescue me, just to say I hear you. You weren't crazy. You weren't weak. You were just trying your best. So this is my story. And if you've ever given up your dreams, your voice, your freedom just to keep a family together, then maybe, just maybe, you'll see yourself in me. My name is Emily. I'm 42, and for the first time in 2 decades, I'm finally breathing. I was born in a dusty little town in rural Missouri, the kind of place with 2 stoplights and 1 grocery store. My dad fixed tractors. My mom worked nights at a motel. They didn't have much, but they gave me everything they could, a hot meal, clean clothes, and a belief that I could do something more. And I tried. Lord, I tried. I worked my way through school, skipped every party, aced every exam. While other girls were out drinking wine coolers and chasing boys, I was sketching buildings in the back of my math textbook. Architecture wasn't just a major. It was my way out. And I made it. Got into a big university, packed up my life into 1 suitcase and a box of books, and never looked back. That's where I met him, Andrew. He was from the city, confident, charming, button-up shirts, perfect smile, parents with a summer home in Vermont. He smelled like leather and expensive shampoo. But what got me was, he noticed me. He saw past the calloused hands and thrift store jeans. He told me I was real, that I didn't fake it like the others. He made me feel worthy, and I loved him for that. We dated through college. He met my parents, loved them, ate every casserole my mom made. When I met his parents, different story. His mom. Margaret looked at me like I was a stain on her linen napkin. She said I was simple, that I had good intentions but no polish. I heard her once whispering to Andrew in the kitchen, "She's not from our world." You'll regret this. But Andrew held my hand that night and said, "I don't care what she thinks. I love you." And maybe I was naive, but I believed him. We got married after graduation. I had job offers from 3 different firms. One of them was in Chicago, my dream city. But Andrew's mom had another plan. No sense wasting money on an apartment when we have a perfectly good home. You'll live here, with us. That's what family does. I hesitated, but Andrew said, "Just for a little while. It'll make Mom happy." So I said yes, because when you're in love, you think you can handle anything? Even if deep down you already know you're walking into a house that will never feel like home. Margaret didn't want me to marry her son. Let's just start there. She never screamed it to my face. Never told Andrew, "No, you can't." But everything about her posture, her tone, her eyes, said it louder than words ever could. "She's sweet," Margaret said once when we were still just dating. "But Andrew, don't you think you're rushing? You're meant for someone more polished." I came from a place where love was simple, where saying I love you meant something real. Margaret came from a place where love had conditions, and I didn't meet any of them. I wasn't from a good family. I didn't go to the right church. I didn't speak with the kind of refined accent she expected in her social circle. Still, Andrew chose me. And so Margaret agreed with one catch. "If you insist on this marriage," she said to Andrew right in front of me, "then you'll move back in here after the wedding. I want to keep my family close." It wasn't a request. It was a warning. I told Andrew we could get our own place. I even had an offer from a respectable architectural firm, not big but promising. He held my hands and smiled. Let's do this one step at a time. We'll live here for a while, save money, make Mom happy. You can always work later. Work later. That phrase? It would haunt me for years. The day we moved in, Margaret gave me a tour of the house, not to welcome me, but to lay down the rules. Don't use the upstairs bathroom that's mine. We eat dinner at 6 sharp. If you're late, eat alone. Andrew likes his shirts folded, not hung, and no dryer, it shrinks his collars. It was her house, her schedule, her world. I was just taking up space in it. A week later, I found out I was pregnant. It was a surprise, not unplanned, but sooner than we expected. I was scared, overwhelmed. But deep down, I thought maybe this will soften her. Maybe becoming a grandmother would melt her cold, sharp edges. It didn't. Margaret was livid when I mentioned I still wanted to pursue work during the pregnancy part-time, maybe freelance design. Don't be selfish, she said. You're having my grandchild. This is not the time to chase little dreams with rulers and pencils. When I told her about the architecture firm's offer, she scoffed. You'll leave a baby at home so you can go play architect. Is that what women do where you come from? Andrew didn't defend me. He looked uncomfortable and quiet, as always. Let's just get through this, he told me later. She's stressed. We'll figure things out after the baby. After the baby. After the move. After the next crisis. It was always after. And so, I declined the offer. Again. From that point on, everything I did became another reason for Margaret to judge me. She criticized how I cut vegetables too thick. That's not how we do it here. She corrected the way I folded laundry. You're stretching the fabric. Do it properly or don't do it at all. She brought up Andrew's ex every chance she got. Melissa used to make lemon meringue from scratch. You've never even made a pie, have you? Melissa's mother went to finishing school. Very elegant woman. Not like... She didn't have to finish the sentence. I knew exactly what she meant. Sophie Andrews' younger sister wasn't any better. She lived in the guest room, didn't work, didn't clean, spent her days sprawled on the couch with nail polish and trashy magazines. And yet she acted like I was the intruder. You don't even use a sterilizer. No offense, but that explains a lot. Andrew tried to stay neutral, but neutrality in a battlefield is just cowardice. Every time I came to him, heart, heavy voice shaking, he'd say the same thing. She's my mom, Emily. She's just old-fashioned. Try not to take it personally. But I was taking it personally because every word, every gesture, every dismissal was a reminder that this was not my home, that no matter how much I tried, I'd always be the outsider. And I thought, maybe when the baby comes, things will change. But I didn't know then that the baby would only tie me tighter to a house that never wanted me in the first place. I was 24 when I got married, fresh out of college, still clutching the last draft of my architecture thesis like it meant something. I thought I had my whole life ahead of me, love, career, family, balance. At 25, I gave birth to our first son, and everything I ever dreamed of slowly slipped through my fingers. Margaret, my mother-in-law, didn't even try to hide her distaste. When we brought the baby home from the hospital, she barely looked at me. She took one glance at my swollen eyes and said, "Why do you look like that? Women used to raise 6 kids with no help, and you're crying after one." I was exhausted, bleeding, nursing, holding my baby through the night, No sleep, no help, no thanks. Andrew went back to work 3 days after I gave birth. Didn't change a single diaper. Didn't hold his own son unless Margaret asked him to pose for a family picture. At 27, I was still hoping to return to work. I sent out a few resumes. Nothing big, just local firms, entry-level freelance work. Margaret found a cover letter in the printer tray. "So you're still chasing that architecture nonsense?" she asked. "With a baby at home?" "Priorities, Emily. This isn't some feminist daydream." I didn't argue, because every time I tried, it ended the same way. This house has rules. We don't pay rent to watch someone play at being a working mom. Your husband works. That's enough. At 28, I got pregnant again. It wasn't planned, not exactly, but I didn't cry. I just nodded, smiled politely when Andrew told his family over dinner. Margaret beamed. 2 boys, now she really won't have time to daydream about going back to work between the ages of 25 and 35. My life was a loop. Wake, feed, clean, repeat. Toddler tantrums, school drop-offs, laundry, dinner, noise, silence. I wasn't living, I was functioning. And every day, someone found a way to remind me that I wasn't doing enough. Sophie never moved out. By 32, she was still single, unemployed, and comfortably rotting in the guest room. She liked to mock my clothes. "You still wear the same jeans from 5 years ago? And my parenting? You sure that's how you handle a fever, Emily? Maybe ask Google." Margaret always took her side. To them, Sophie was the spirited one. And I was the country girl with a husband too good for her. Every birthday party, every Christmas dinner, every Thanksgiving I cooked. I cleaned. I wrapped gifts for their relatives, and I watched Margaret praise Sophie for showing up. She's just so special. Emily's the practical one, of course, keeps things tidy. They didn't even look at me when they said it. I was wallpaper. Noise. Utility. Andrew was somewhere else. At work. At the gym. At conferences. Wherever I wasn't. When he came home, he barely asked about the kids, let alone me. When I tried to speak up even gently, he'd say, "You're always complaining." "I work hard all day. Do you think that's easy?" "No, Andrew. I didn't think it was easy, but I also didn't think it was fair that I gave up my 20s, my 30s, my name, my ambition. And you couldn't even give me 5 minutes of patience. At 35, I started to forget what I used to want. I couldn't remember the last time someone said my name without irritation in their voice. At 37, I stopped buying new clothes. What for? At 38, I stopped trying to explain my exhaustion. It was easier to just nod when Margaret said, "She always looks tired. Maybe it's the way they age in rural towns." At 40, my oldest son asked me why I never smiled anymore. That one question hurt more than everything Margaret ever said. I looked in the mirror that night and barely recognized the woman staring back. Eyes hollow, mouth quiet, shoulders curled. Where did she go? And now I'm 42, 17 years later, and for the first time, I'm saying it out loud. They took everything from me, and I let them, because I thought if I gave enough, they'd finally love me. But some people only know how to take. It happened at 5:42 in the morning. The phone rang and I just knew. No one calls that early unless the news is the kind that steals the air from your lungs. I picked up with trembling hands, still half asleep. My cousin's voice was soft. Too soft. "Emily, it's your dad. He passed away last night. It was a stroke. Quick, He didn't feel a thing. I didn't scream, didn't cry, just sat there barefoot in the kitchen staring at the floor as the kettle whistled behind me like the world hadn't just ended. My father was the only person who ever told me he was proud of me, even when I was doing nothing but surviving. He used to call once a week, even when his hands shook too much to hold the phone steady. He never said much. Just, "You okay, sweetheart? You eating enough? I miss hearing your voice." And now, I'd never hear it again. Andrew came down the stairs half awake. I looked at him, my face pale, lips trembling, and said, "My dad died." He blinked, rubbed his temples, muttered, "Oh, wow, I'm sorry." Then he checked his phone and added, "I have that trip next week. I can't miss it. Big account. You'll be okay going alone, right?" That was it. No hug. No, "Let's figure it out." No, "Of course I'll be there with you. Just, you'll be okay." I wasn't okay, but I nodded anyway. Because what else was I supposed to do? Beg Margaret's reaction? Worse. She barely looked up from the newspaper. "Well, I'm sorry for your loss, but please don't bring that heavy energy into this house. We have children here. Children. My sons were 16 and 13. They understood death. They loved their grandfather. But I was expected to grieve quietly, efficiently, without inconvenience." And Emily, she added, "Don't make Andrew cancel his meetings. Your father wouldn't want to drag down the family like that, would he?" So I packed my bags. Alone. My older son had exams. The younger one was overwhelmed. I didn't want them to miss school, so I told them to stay. I kissed them both goodbye and drove 8 hours through gray skies and static silence back to the town I left at 18, back to bury the only man who ever made me feel truly safe. The funeral was small. My cousins, some old neighbors, a few men from the auto shop. People kept asking me, "Where's your husband?" He didn't come. He must be very busy. I smiled. Lied. Yes, very busy. But inside, something inside me cracked. Because if the person you married, the man who vowed to be there in sickness, in sorrow, can't even stand beside you at your father's funeral, then what the hell is left? I stood by the casket, alone. And for the first time in 17 years, I didn't just feel invisible. I felt abandoned. Utterly. Completely. When I got back home 2 days later, no one met me at the door. Andrew was at his laptop. He looked up briefly. "You okay?" Was it a nice service? I didn't answer, because how do you explain to someone what it's like to bury your father alone? Margaret walked by later holding a tray of folded towels. "Well, at least you didn't make a scene," she said. "That's good. But do me a favor and wash the morning smell off your clothes. I don't want it lingering." That night I sat in the dark. The house was quiet. Everyone asleep. I looked at my hands, cracked, tired, empty, and I thought if I died today, they'd say I was dramatic. They'd say I was too sensitive. They'd say I should have smiled more. But what they'd never say is that I was a person, a whole person, with dreams, with pain, with value. And that's when I knew, if I didn't save myself soon, no one ever would. After I came back from my father's funeral, I stopped crying. I didn't scream, didn't argue, didn't demand anything. I just went quiet. And in that silence, I finally started to hear myself. One night, about a week after the funeral, I was washing dishes when my oldest son walked into the kitchen. He leaned against the counter, watched me for a moment, and asked Mom, "Are you happy I froze?" That boy had seen me exhausted, angry, crying. But he had never seen me happy. And the fact that he had to ask, that he didn't already know the answer, shattered me more than anything Margaret had ever said. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, I opened the bottom drawer of my nightstand, the one I hadn't touched in years, and pulled out my old portfolio. Sketches, concepts, building plans. I flipped through them slowly like I was reading a letter from a version of myself that no longer existed, and at the very back, tucked into a yellowing folder, was a letter, an old job offer, from a firm that once believed in me. I cried so hard that night I almost couldn't breathe. The next morning I didn't say a word to anyone. I got dressed, took the bus into town, and found a lawyer. No drama, no shouting, no theatrics. Just a woman, quietly planning her escape. In the weeks that followed, I moved out. A small apartment on the edge of the city, nothing fancy, just clean and quiet. For the first time in years, I slept through the night without hearing footsteps in the hallway or whispered judgments behind my back. The only reason I could afford to leave at all was because of my father. He had left me a small inheritance, just enough to pay for the deposit, a new laptop, and a couple months of rent. It wasn't much, but it was enough to start breathing. I began taking freelance jobs, small projects, mostly floor plan edits, interior mock-ups, real estate renderings. It was inconsistent, messy, barely enough at times, but every dollar I earned felt like oxygen. No one rolled their eyes. No one said I was wasting my time. No one told me to lower my voice. I wasn't thriving, not yet, but I was surviving on my own terms. Andrew, of course, found out. He showed up one day at the old house to pick up some mail, saw me loading groceries into my secondhand car. He smirked. "You really think you can make it out here on your own? You've lived off me for 17 years, Emily. Let's not pretend you're suddenly self-made." I didn't answer. I just shut the trunk and drove away. Margaret called later that night. "After everything this family gave you, a roof food status, and this is how you repay us. You're ungrateful, Emily. Pathetic." I didn't argue, didn't explain, didn't even raise my voice. I just said I lived under your roof, but I survived because of me and because of my father. Then I hung up. I kept going. Late nights, tight deadlines, freelance clients who ghosted. I worked from a folding table with a wobbly chair, wrote invoices while reheating ramen. Some days were awful, but none of them were as awful as feeling invisible in my own home. One evening, my oldest son came by after school. He looked around the small apartment, the mismatched furniture, the cheap curtains, the little potted plant I'd started growing by the window. He smiled and said, "I haven't seen you this peaceful in years." And that was everything. 6 months later, I got the letter from the court. My divorce was finalized. No confetti, no celebration, just a moment of stillness and a breath I hadn't taken in 17 years. I made a cup of tea, stood by the window, and watched the sun set through streaky glass. And I thought, they thought I'd never leave. They thought I'd never survive. But here I am, still standing, still building, not just homes, but myself. It's been 1 week. 1 week since the papers were signed. 1 week since the last tie was officially cut. 1 week since I stopped being someone's wife and started being just me again. There was no celebration, no champagne, No you go girl text from a best friend. Just a quiet evening in my apartment. A cup of lukewarm tea, the fan humming softly in the corner, and a silence that didn't feel empty, but peaceful. People think that when you get divorced, everything changes overnight. It doesn't. The laundry still piles up. The bills still arrive. You still have to figure out what to make for dinner. But something does shift. Quietly. Almost invisibly. It's like you can breathe again even if your lungs still hurt. I won't pretend everything's perfect. It's not. I still wake up some mornings panicking over money. I still feel guilty when my sons look sad. I still wonder if I should have left sooner, or stayed longer, or fought harder. But then I remember the version of me that used to live in that house. The woman who said I'm fine so many times she forgot what I'm not okay sounded like. And I realize I don't want to be her ever again. Now I wake up alone but not lonely. I eat what I want when I want. I wear mismatched pajamas and blast music while I clean. I reply to emails from clients. Some flake, some pay late, some are lovely. I'm not winning at life. I'm just showing up every day for myself. And that's more than I ever did for the last 17 years. My apartment is still small. My bank account still tight. But this little space, with its thrift store furniture and secondhand curtains, feels more like home than that big house ever did. Because it's mine. Because no one here rolls their eyes when I speak. Because the silence here is kind, not cruel. A few days ago, I looked in the mirror and didn't flinch. No makeup, hair messy, but I saw me. Not a wife, not a daughter-in-law, not a servant. Just Emily. To be honest, I don't know what's next. I don't have a 5-year plan. I don't have a big career comeback or a new boyfriend or a list of lessons learned. All I have is today. And for the first time in a long time, that's enough. If you've listened this far, thank you. I didn't share this story to get sympathy. I don't need to be rescued. I just needed to be heard by someone, anyone who might understand what it feels like to disappear inside your own life and then slowly crawl your way back out. If you're still in that place, if you're still surviving in silence, I hope you find your way to the light, even if it's just a flicker. And if you've already made it out, please leave me a blessing in the comments. Not because I need praise, but because sometimes a stranger's kindness is the only thing keeping us going. It's been 1 week since I officially let go. I don't know where I'm headed, but this time, I'm walking for me.